This is a special research institute. All the children held there possess supernatural abilities and are different from ordinary people. But no one expected that this research facility would be hiding shocking secrets. This is a science fiction drama based on the novel The Institute by Stephen King. In a school gym, high school students are taking an exam. Among them is Luke Ellis, a 14-year-old boy with extraordinary intelligence. When he finished the exam, he raised his hands, but the examiner, assuming he wanted to go to the bathroom, pointed towards there, but he was actually finished. Outside, a group of students approached him and asked why he was here. He is younger than them. One of them asked him the answer for one of the questions and realizes that she got a different answer than Luke. He then did the calculation and solved it for her. She realized that she was the one who was wrong and walked away. Elsewhere, Tim Jameson prepares for a trip to New York City, but when he arrives at the airport, he learns the flight is overbooked. Since he wasn't especially excited about the trip to begin with, he volunteers to give up his seat. Instead of booking another flight, he decides to travel by road. After hitchhiking for a while, he finds a woman who agrees to give him a ride.
Show your stuff in the back.
That evening, while having dinner with his parents at a pizza restaurant, they talked about his academic path. His principal has already started discussing his future at a university like MIT. His parents are worried about this. During the conversation, the metal pizza pan on the table suddenly moves and crashes to the floor, even though no one touched it. Luke seems confused. Nearby, a woman watches him closely without saying a word. Later that night, Luke browses on his laptop, then puts it aside and goes to bed. The house becomes quiet. When everyone is asleep, the same woman from the restaurant returns. She is dressed in black and is not alone. Her team slips into the house. While the others keep watch, she heads into Luke's room. As she stands over him, Luke stirs. Just as he starts to open his eyes, she sprays something into his face, and he loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Tim finds himself in Denison, a quiet town in Maine. Tim reads an ad about an opening for a night knocker, a kind of unofficial night patrolman who checks doors and keeps the town safe after dark. He applies for the job, and the local deputy is clearly surprised by his interest. Tim downplays his past, mentioning his time in the military and later on the police force. Tim had been involved in a tragic incident where he accidentally shot and killed a teenager who was suspected of planning a mass shooting at a mall. After discussing further, the deputy told him he is overqualified for the job, but if he wants it, it is his. Luke wakes up the next morning in a room that looks exactly like his own, but when he opens the curtains, he realizes he is somewhere else. As he steps outside, he meets a teenage girl named Kalisha. She explains that they are in a secret facility called the Institute, located in Maine. She asks if he is a TP or a TK. A TP is someone who can read minds. A TK is someone who can move objects without touching them. Luke tells her he has mild telekinetic powers. Kalisha tells him she has telepathy. She then starts telling him about the place. No outside contact is allowed at the Institute. The children have no way to reach their families or let anyone know where they are. The facility is under the control of Ms. Sigsby, who oversees operations, while Dr. Hendricks is responsible for all medical procedures and health matters. The staff monitors him through the security cameras, quietly noting how calm he remains under pressure. After sharing everything she knows, Kalisha suddenly leans in and kisses Luke without warning. Before he can respond, Stackhouse, the head of security, appears and instructs Luke to get dressed. He is scheduled to meet with Miss Sigsby. Tim lands the position. Officer Wendy Gullickson gives him a brisk, almost mocking introduction to the role. She's territorial about her unit and clearly resents outsiders who mock their local customs, especially the old tradition of the night knocker. Tim mentions without fuss that his grandfather once held that same job. While being led down the hall, Luke spots the woman who had abducted him from his home, Michelle. He tries to approach her, but Stackhouse and the other guard physically stop him and continue pulling him toward the office. In her office, Ms. Sigsby informs Luke that the work being done at the Institute is of critical importance. According to her, the efforts of the children will help save countless lives. She makes it clear that although they are young, the children must follow all rules and procedures without resistance. The most important rule is total compliance with staff instructions. Each child is scheduled for injections and tests, and refusing them is not allowed. Ms. Sigsby also tells Luke that once a child completes their time at the Institute, all their memories of the place will be erased. After that, they will be returned to their homes as if none of it ever happened. As Tim starts his patrol, Tim comes across an older woman sitting by herself listening to the radio. She behaves as if she already knows personal details about him, even though they have never met before. Just before he walks away, she tells him to listen to someone named George Armin. She also warns him that there are things happening in the world that are far stranger than he can imagine. Tim is left puzzled by her words. In the elevator, Stackhouse and Michelle talk about bringing in their next subject, though Michelle is not pleased. Luke's abduction had been hurried, apparently because of the MIT offer. Because of that, the process didn't go as planned. Later, as she drives out of the institute, she sees a man asking the guards about the place. The institute operates under the cover of a microbiology lab. It is heavily guarded. The guard tells the man it is a lab and leads him away. Later, Luke is escorted by Maureen to meet another staff member. As they walk, she tells him that children who follow the rules and show obedience can earn tokens. These tokens can be used at vending machines throughout the facility to purchase snacks and small rewards. Luke then meets another staff member who gives him further instructions. The man orders Luke to sit down in a chair to implant a chip in his ear. When Luke hesitates and refuses to cooperate, the staff member strikes him across the face. Luke finally sits. The man then uses a tool to attach a chip to Luke's ear. It appears to be a tracking device. Tim is staying at the Stanton Hotel in Denison, a place run by Hollister. When Tim gets out, he stumbles upon him and they talk about an animal Hollister is holding. When Tim goes to Annie, she tells him she avoids Hollister because she blames him for interfering with her radio signals. Tim shrugs it off and heads out. In a bar, Michelle meets her girlfriend Kate. When they exit the bar, they walk right by Tim. Later that same day, Kalisha comes by Luke's room to bring him to dinner with the other kids. She now has the same metal piece attached to her ear, although no one knows exactly what it does. During the walk, Kalisha kisses Luke once again. This time she provides an explanation. She tells him that 3 days after she first arrived at the institute, she was placed in quarantine. She doesn't reveal the name of the illness or exactly what happened to her, but she believes she may still be carrying it. She explains that if Luke catches whatever she has, it might delay his transfer to the back half. According to her, getting sick might actually keep him safer for a little longer. Kalisha and Luke arrive at the cafeteria, where Luke is introduced to more children with unusual abilities. Two of them, George and Iris, are telekinetic. As the group chats, Luke learns about a classification system used at the institute. Children are labeled as either TP or TK. Each of those categories is further divided into POs and NEG. A NEG cannot control their ability at will, while a POS can. To demonstrate, George uses his telekinetic power to knock over a glass of water and then make the spilled water float in the air. Another boy soon joins them. His name is Nick, though most of the kids call him Nicky. He seems more bitter than the others and more openly angry about being stuck in the institute. As they continue to talk, Luke finds out that the age range among the children is wide. The youngest is 10 years old and the oldest is 19. Michelle checks into a hotel room with Kate, weighed down by guilt. She confesses her doubts about the institute and talks about making their secrets public, but Kate kills her without hesitation. She was sent by Stackhouse to see if Michelle could be trusted. After the job's done, Kate contacts him and asks for cleanup. Luke steps outside to the playground, looking for a bit of quiet. There he finds Nicky sitting on a bench, smoking. Nicky invites him to play chess, and Luke accepts. At the same time, inside her own home, Miss Sigsbee prepares a simple meal. After eating, she takes a hot metal rod and presses it against the flesh of her calf. The burn mark it leaves is deliberate. Several older scars are already there. Meanwhile, back in Maine, Tim continues his nightly patrol through the small town. Finally, Luke wins the game. Luke explains how he managed to win. Nicky asks how smart he is and asks if he actually believes the stories they are told. Nicky tells him he grew up in a foster house and he knows better than to believe the promises that were given to them. Nicky brings up the idea of teaming up to escape the institute. Luke doesn't respond right away, but it looks like he agrees. In the morning, Luke is woken by Sigsbee telling him it is time for celebration. It's Iris's graduation day at the institute. She is almost done with the first half. Staff and children gather in the cafeteria for a celebration, though no one seems eager to join in. The occasion carries a dark undertone. The children know that graduation means disappearing into the unknown. No one who has crossed into the back half has ever returned. Iris cried, scared of what awaits her, while Nicky tries to comfort her. Luke is also preparing for his first round of testing. Kalisha advises him to have a slice of cake, claiming it can help ease the nausea that follows the injections. Luke takes a piece of cake and starts eating. She then asks Luke about Nicky's plan. He confides in her about the escape plan he and Nicky have been forming. He adds that his goal is not just to flee, but to help the others as well. Seeing Nicky and Iris hugging, Kalisha mentions that even though Iris tries to hide it, she can see that she is into Nicky. Luke realizes that Nicky and Kalisha are together. Finally, Luke and Kalisha also say their goodbyes to Iris before Maureen escorts her away. In town, Tim goes out to go to work. Hollister asked for help and asked him to hold his pet. Tim stands there awkwardly, but Hollister takes the pet and puts it in the cage. In the office, Wendy warns Tim that there's a chance 2 armed criminals might target the town. He turns down her offer of a gun, sticking to his own way of doing things. The tension between them lingers, though Tim attempts a light joke to ease it. She doesn't laugh, but her guard begins to slip just a little. She repeatedly warns him about tonight, and he walks out. Elsewhere in her office, Miss Sigsbee joins Stackhouse for a tense phone call with a man who appears to outrank them both. They report the death of Michelle. She is the Institute's snatch team leaders. The man on the other end orders them to fill the vacant position immediately to keep the abduction teams fully operational. Ms. Sigsbee suggests appointing Kate as a temporary replacement while they search for a permanent fix. The man agrees and Stackhouse goes along with it. Once the call ends, Sigsbee and Stackhouse start to argue. They barely tolerate one another. Meanwhile, Luke is brought into a testing room. He's strapped into a chair while Dr. Hendricks and the staffer named Tony, the one who implanted the metal device in his ear, prepare the equipment. They explain that they need to establish a baseline for his telekinetic ability. Luke tells them that he can't control it consciously. Despite this, they inject him with an unknown substance. Within moments, dizziness sets in. In the center of town, Annie anxiously confronts Mrs. Sloan, insisting that Zoe Sloan's death wasn't an accident, but something more sinister. Her agitation draws a crowd. Tim steps in and manages to settle her, though his effort doesn't sit well with Officer Drew, who clearly sees Annie as nothing more than a troublemaker. Luke attempts to move an object with his mind, but nothing happens. Dr. Hendricks instructs Tony to administer a second dose. After the next injection, Luke finally manages to lift the item briefly before it falls. The effect is short-lived, but enough to meet the minimum requirement for a result. Luke gets sick and vomits. The test ends, and Luke is released from the chair. Outside, Maureen checks up on Luke, telling him the first time is always hard. She advises him to eat something, and he walks to the cafeteria. Later, back in the cafeteria, Luke finds Nikki and tells him what happened during the test. As they speak, Kalisha enters with George, who is visibly shaken and unsteady. Luke immediately notices that something is wrong. Nikki explains that George has just gone through the final trial in the front half, a procedure known as the dream box. According to Nikki, it drags out painful memories buried deep in the mind and forces the subject to relive them. The only way to end the experience is to correctly align a series of flashing lights. It's a psychological test designed to break them, and George's condition suggests it works. Nikki and Luke head out, pretending they're going to play basketball. In reality, they're weighing their options and quietly talking through possible ways out. They are fully committed to escaping the Institute, but the path forward is anything but clear. The biggest obstacle is the security system. They need a way to avoid being seen by the cameras scattered throughout the facility. Luke brings up the idea of recruiting someone on the inside, a staff member who could help them quietly, but the risk is enormous. If the person betrays them and reports everything to Ms. Sigsbee, the plan will collapse before it even begins. Luke then floats another idea. If they could find a telepath strong enough to read the minds of the staff and disrupt their thoughts without detection, they might stand a chance. The only issue is that no such telepath has shown up yet, and there's no guarantee that one ever will. As they talk, Luke notices the factory nearby that belches thick smoke like clockwork every week. Elsewhere, Tim and Wendy talk about Zoe's death. She brings up the Red Steps, a restricted part of the river known for its deadly current. Years ago, a group of teenagers, including Zoe, drank too much and were pulled under. Their bodies turned up days later. Annie arrived long after the tragedy and became convinced it wasn't just misfortune. Tim, still unsettled by how much Annie knew about him, brings it up. Wendy, however, dismisses it all as the ramblings of someone with a fragile grip on reality. Meanwhile, George's telekinetic abilities are growing. He manages to pull a coin from the vending machine. The three kids talk about their plan. Luke and Kalisha believe that Maureen, a longtime staff member, could be trusted. She's shown small signs of kindness and hesitation in the past. Nikki disagrees. In his view, she's just like the others, complicit and dangerous. During the conversation, Luke informs them that a new child will be arriving later that night. His name is Avery Dixon, and he's even younger than the rest of the group. Before starting his shift, Tim stops by the local gas station and strikes up a friendly conversation with the owner, Dabira. Dabira complains about the new requests he gets every time. He then tells him he is from Kenya and he was 3 years into his economics doctorate at a university located in Mogadishu. But in 2007, Al-Shabaab came after his family, so they were forced to leave. 2 years in a refugee camp was hard, but now in Maine he has a new beginning and he is thankful for that. Before Tim leaves, Dabira tells him the coffee is in the house, and Tim thanks him. That night, Tim returns to check on Annie. As they talk, she brings up the Institute, clearly convinced that something sinister is happening. Their conversation is cut short by the sound of gunfire nearby. Tim immediately runs toward the noise and arrives at the local gas station, where a robbery is in progress. The two suspects open fire on him before speeding off in their truck. Inside the gas station, Tim finds Dabira lying wounded on the floor. He calls in the shooting and begins giving first aid while waiting for help to arrive. Back at the institute, Dr. Hendricks prepares to leave for the night. As he walks out, Stackhouse catches up with him. Hendricks reports that George is almost ready for transfer to the back half. Stackhouse welcomes the news, saying George will be needed for something involving keyholes. The conversation shifts to Luke. Hendricks updates him on Luke's early test results. Stackhouse notes that although Luke's telepathic abilities haven't fully surfaced, he still might play an important role in the bigger picture. Hendricks then draws a line. He tells Stackhouse he isn't willing to break the Institute's rules or risk his position by scanning for something called PCs among the kids. A police officer finally arrives at the gas station. It's Drew, but he freezes at the sight of Dabira bleeding on the floor. Panic overtakes him. Tim, keeping his composure, tells him to call for an ambulance. Drew follows the instruction without hesitation. Wendy's voice comes through the walkie-talkie, confirming that help is on the way. As they continue walking toward Hendricks' home, Stackhouse gets more direct. He hints that certain individuals outside the Institute are willing to pay generously for an advantage, suggesting this could be a very profitable arrangement. Hendricks seems to shift in tone. Stackhouse lays it out plainly. If Hendricks wants in, he'll need to identify and develop a child with PC potential. That child, in Stackhouse's mind, is Luke. From inside her home, Miss Sigsbee looks at the two men talking. Back in the city, the ambulance pulls up and Chief Ashworth arrives on the scene. Thanks to Tim's quick actions, the situation is under control. That night, Luke lies in bed but can't sleep. A quiet sound from the hallway grabs his attention. Someone is crying just outside his door. He gets up and finds a young boy curled up on the floor. It's the new arrival, Avery Dixon. Moments later, Kalisha, Nikki, and George come over to check what's happening. Kalisha kneels beside Avery and tries to calm him down. As she comforts him, she reaches into his mind. George gently helps Avery back to his room. Once he's gone, Kalisha pulls Luke and Nikki aside. She tells them what she saw. Avery isn't just sensitive, he's incredibly powerful. His telepathic strength is unlike anything she's felt before. Luke and Nikki exchange a look. They might have just found the piece they've been missing.